Good morning. Hope you all had a great weekend and appreciate you jumping in and joining us on this week's FOA Live. I'm Jennifer Katrulya, co-president of Family Office Association. And of course, normally I'd be joined by Russ Olney, my co-president, but Rush is on the road today, so I am going to step in for the two of us. As he would say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are located as you join us. And whether you're watching us live, thank you if you're joining us, and for sure if you comment in, we will shout you out. Otherwise, if you are watching this on a playback or on the podcast, appreciate you taking the time to join us. As we continue to grow the community, it's really fun to get your messages, either the comments during the show or the direct messages we get during and afterward. Love to respond, so please don't be shy about reaching out to us. We want to answer your questions and appreciate you being part of the community. So for today's show, we actually are going to share an interview we did several weeks ago as part of a multi-speaker masterclass we did. We're going to welcome Greg Merrill. Greg is Global Head of Digital Innovation at Nike. And, Greg and I connected purely by chance some time ago, and that's pretty cool how the networking world works. But we became, quick contacts and found that we had just a lot in common. And so Greg's been on the road with us, or we've been on with him for some time, visiting a number of family office events, sharing. Greg is a sought after speaker and advisor to family offices, investors, corporate leaders, athletes, you name it. And so, but it's really a privilege and pleasure to spend time with him. So, oftentimes we have master classes or we'll have other events that are for our internal member group. But occasionally we have something that we just feel would be valuable, or we've had asks to share with the broader group of you. And so we're excited to do that. As we welcome Greg on today, and as you watch the interview he and I had the chance to do, if you have questions, comments, please feel free to still enter them in the feed, and we will respond. I will make sure we're checking in and answering your questions and responding to your comments, shouting out that you're on. And then if you find that you want to message directly, again, or want to connect with Greg, we're happy to help facilitate that as well. So thank you again for joining. And we look forward to seeing you on our next FOA Live. As you listen to Greg today, we'll kick it off. And thank you again for joining us and for listening. So welcome back, everyone, after our short break there. Hope everybody got to step away for a few minutes. Thank you very much. And I am very excited. I mentioned at the start of our day today and over the last couple of days that we are now joined by Greg Merrill. Greg, super excited to have you on, and talking about a small world, which has come up a number of times this week. You and I connected really just pretty randomly, but it's been over the last couple of months. I so appreciate having the chance to get to know you. And I was saying when you signed on, you're a man on the move. So for those who haven't had the chance to interact with Greg, he's an executive advisor, board member, digital innovator. He's everywhere. And so he also is the global head of digital transformation at Nike. And so wears many, many hats. And Greg, you've been a speaker now. I've gotten we met in person at a family office event. You've been on the road. So thank you for taking the time to join us today. And
absolutely. No, thank you for the opportunity and the invite. And I'll just say, fun. Like I always expect fun when I'm with you. So that was a big part of me saying yes, is I'm still having fun and I'm learning a lot, meeting wonderful people. So thank you, Jennifer.
Well, thank you so much. And Greg, if you wouldn't mind it, we're going to cover, I know, kind of a range of things today, but maybe we would just start by you sharing a bit about you with the attendees. And so I'll remind everyone, whether you're on Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching from, if you chat in your questions, we'll throw them at Greg. I'll also say hello if you chime in. And then anything that we don't get to answer or that you don't want to have answered while we're on, please message me directly or Greg, and happy to follow up. So with that, Greg, maybe share a little bit about yourself if you don't mind, and then we'll hit the ground on the questions.
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep it brief, but maybe I'll go way back. So in undergrad, I studied kinesiology, and I bring that up because it's going to be a theme that comes across as we go forward. And I had an early fascination in the human mind and the body and the reasons that we do the things that we do. And I I always thought if you can really understand and master, the human mind and body, you can kind of do anything because guess what? We're all human beings here. So, anyways, kinesiology, went back to school later on and I did a business degree. And let's see, worked in the health and fitness space for the early part of my career. Uh, I then went on to co-found 3 different companies. One of them was an innovation partner working with Nike, which through that partnership, obviously got to fall in love with the swoosh and Nike as a company. That transitioned to, gosh, almost 9 years ago, working, full time with Nike. And, a lot more of the work that I'm doing now is partnering with private equity firms and family offices. And we'll talk about that a little bit too, but that's where I think, frankly, I'm most excited. And I'm looking, to help, folks diversify and grow their returns through direct investing. It's a nice way to kind of take my blended experience and background and sort of take off on a new journey here. So anyway, that's
Well,
for
that's awesome. Congratulations and thank you. And when I have to admit, when we first connected and when I thought about digital transformation and the range of things that you've just mentioned you're doing, I did pause for a minute and I'm like, well, wait a minute. So how does that flow? How do you define digital transformation and what does that mean to you?
It's a very ambiguous term, and while I typically, the nerd in me is like, no, we have to all agree on one thing. It's okay being ambiguous, and because I think a lot of different companies are at different phases in their career or their journey, their life stage, if you will. There are early stage companies that are growing up in the e-commerce and in built on digital foundations. So digital transformation will look very different for them than say a 50-year-old company like Nike or others out there that were built in an analog time when we were faxing footwear designs over to Asia to work with our factory partners and things like that. So it's okay being ambiguous because digital transformation will mean different things for both sides. But the one thing I'll say is I think there's sort of an internal element and an external element to however you define digital transformation. And the internal is more about your capabilities and how you operate as a company, how your people come together to do work. So let's say, inventory is a big part of your business. Well, what is your internal company's capability for manning, planning, and allocating inventory across the globe? That's a capability. And there are different technologies and digital tools that you can leverage to transform your business and to do that in a more optimal fashion. The flip side, the more external side is, digitally transforming the way that you show up to your partners or your consumers. And this is one I'm really proud of. I mean, so with Nike, just in the short 8 years that I've been there, we grew from 26 billion to 52 billion in top line annual revenue. And that was predominantly grown through our digital channels. And so again, that's a external expression of all the internal capabilities. So whether your consumers are shopping online or you're on an app and things like that, you have to meet your consumers where they are. And so the digital transformation in that external sense is again around, are you meeting your consumers where they are? Are you leveraging digital technologies to show up and build your business on your customers' terms?
Well, and I so appreciate that. And so I'm going to throw a question at you. And anybody who's been on any, you have not been on an FOA live with me or anything yet, but I'll let you know, Greg, that Rush goes through this all the time. If any of you have met my co-president, Rush Olney, that we have a script and then something comes up and I have to depart from it. So I do have a question because even as I think about it right now, 2 things come up. First, the number of questions that I have when it comes to digital transformation and people, if you are educating yourself about what this means, this is not a judgment when I say this. I do often get a lot of questions or comments that are something along the lines of, well, how many clicks do you get? And understanding really this versus a digital media or social media or marketing conversation, they're closely aligned in a number of ways, but this digital transformation, different thing and different beast. And so I don't know, again, how you even keep it straight in the minds of, as we've discussed, a number of the people you're presenting to, it all becomes everything digital, gets like lumped into one bucket. And the second thing is, and really where my question is here is, you're dealing with things that, generally speaking, for the most part, people want to touch or are used to touching, or having access to. And so, how does that differ for you, or how do you overcome some of the challenges, questions, obstacles? We saw this a lot, of course, during COVID, but it's a more general question. Like, as things have moved online and as things are digital, and to your point, you're trying to reach people. How do you do that in a sense where there are obviously a few things people think of first?
Yeah. Well, being a company built on kind of physical goods, that was a learning journey because I can tell you, even for the longest time in my adult life, I would never buy footwear online. I had to see it, I had to touch it, I had to feel it on. All everybody's feet is different shape and size, and we have different preferences. So that was a really hard thing. Some of the things that I'd explored early on, even pre Nike, was 3D printing.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing here is, instead of buying a shoe, and by the way, we're not here yet, so this is a little bit futuristic kind of thinking or dreaming, but could you, instead of purchasing a shoe from a shoe company, purchase a license to 3D print the file at home, right? And then you could choose the color, you could choose the size, and you have some flexibility around there. That would be cool. That would be awesome. That would completely change the business model on how customers shop and how brands think to kind of monetize their business. But we're not there just yet. So I think what you saw was folks doing things like BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store,
Mhm.
or ROPIS, reserve online and pick up in store. And in the pandemic, we were all kind of shuttered in our homes. Companies had to figure out clever ways to keep customers shopping, and e-commerce blew up, right? And everybody was shopping online. So, I don't have a perfect answer for how that happened, but I think the pandemic sort of accelerated a bunch of things. It exposed a bunch of internal gaps in capabilities, and then sort of companies had to respond and say, what do we do about this? So, um, yeah, I think I'd leave it there.
So, but as far as digital transformation, and again, going back to even where I was, um, short-sighted or not thinking about it in the broader sense, even as you and I connected, you spend a lot of your time talking about strategy, technology, innovation. And so, when you're talking about that, and for Nike, and for the broad range of things you're doing, um as I started to process even our connection, I was like, well, how small-minded am I being about this? Because it is so much more than the consumer good and all the other. So maybe you can even take a second, because this to me would touch on how you're working with people and broadening their minds about, even for an environment like what you're in,
Mm.
the digital transformation and innovation have meant diversifying into a number of things that aren't even really directly related to those goods.
Yes. So there's maybe two aspects to that. Um, Strategy and technology or transformation and innovation. They're words, right? Again, we got these ambiguous words. Well, what do we mean by that? So I think step one, it starts at the foundation with your strategy. It doesn't matter if you're a family office or if you're a company, big or small, you must get crystal clear on your strategy. And that means get really clear on who you are as an organization, what you're good at, more importantly, what you're not good at, and where you want to grow, and what are some risks and threats that you need to be concerned about or be paying attention to as you build your growth pathway. So getting super clear on your strategy, what you stand for, and where you want to go is step one. And it's crazy to say this because it's like very foundational. A lot of groups that I work with just don't have that clarity yet. And that's okay. There's people out there like me that will say, great, let's sit down and figure this out together, because that's step one, like 1A. 1B is, does everybody in your organization understand what your company strategy is? And again, a lot of people get this wrong. They're like, cool, we have this kind of bumper sticker, tagline of our strategy for the year is this. Well, if I, as maybe an employee of that organization, no matter what job or what level of the organization, if I can't look at and understand that strategy and say, I can make daily decisions on the work that I do when I understand that strategy. If I can't do that, 1B has not been completed. Strategy is not understood by the organization. You are not moving synchronized into growth and valuable future. So anyway, I won't harp on strategy too much. It's something I spend a lot of time on because I think folks kind of gloss over it and they think, well, we do this. Everybody knows we do that, so it's kind of clear. And I say, time out. I don't think it's as clear as you think. So let's work on that. Then technology is a tool. That's it. It's a tool. And so it should be there to support and accelerate whatever your strategy is. So again, it comes back to that strategy. Got to get clear on that, or you're going to be chasing shiny metal objects with your technology and say, this is cool. Shouldn't we do this? Or, but if it isn't anchored in your organizational strategy, time out, go back, start over. And then on the innovation piece, which Jennifer, I love that you brought that up because this is about culture and organizational culture. And culture is something, I think of, I get real visual and I think of analogies. It's like a garden. And by the way, I'm not a gardener, but maybe I should be. Culture is your flower bed or your vegetables, and they're only going to grow and cultivate if you take care of them and you rip out the weeds and you water them the right amount and you're exposing them to the right sunshine and things like that. So if you're not very intentional about building a culture that you can be proud of and that it's the place where the best people can come together, collaborate and work on challenging things and solve them. That's all about culture. If you feel like your organization isn't productive or moving as fast as you want it to, I would look at your culture, because an innovation culture is one not rooted on fear, right? It's rooted on tolerance, acceptance, embracing other points of view. We haven't talked about inclusion, but that's a big part of, I think, successful cultures today have to be inclusive, because if your employee base or your C-suite, your board doesn't look like your customer base, you've probably got a problem, right? Because you need to think and operate the way that your customers do if you really want to serve them well in the business that you do. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
That's so much involved, right? And that again, people just kind of don't checklist. And when you mentioned the need to focus on strategy and keep that something that you come back to, uh, not only can you point yourself in a direction that is not actually useful or productive, but you can quickly just become outdated, right? And continue to repeat the same thing over and over again. That's no longer relevant. So I think staying relevant and strategy, those are so closely tied together. And so then you talk about the strategic partnerships involved in all of this. And so what role do those strategic partnerships play in your growth strategy? How do you approach these relationships? I think about it as a great next question, because to me, it does challenge you to stay fresh, right? Or somebody's going to challenge you when you come to those discussions. But what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah. So I look at partnerships as in kind of a more broad sense, if you will. For instance, a relationship or partnership between an employer and employee, or the relationship between an investor and the CEO of a startup. Anyway, I won't go, but I think I would challenge anybody to show me an individual or a company that was truly self-made. I don't love that self-made term, because none of us are. The reality is we all stand on the shoulders of giants. I know that I couldn't be where I am today without my parents having done some of the things that they did. And so I think, partnerships are critical to every single organization out there. Again, go big company, small company, go family office. Maybe you're co-investing with other family offices or with venture firms and whatnot. But the other thing I'll say about strategic partnerships is I think it's imperative, going back to the strategy comment, to get really clear about what you want and what you offer, right? Because again, I think a lot of people will fall back on, well, we're this, this is what we bring to the table. And I'll pause on that one for a minute, because in the venture and the private equity space, what I see a lot of investors coming in and saying, well, we're a source of funding, right? We provide capital and that's what we contribute. And look, I think that plays a really important role. It's got to be more than that. It has to be so much more than that. I won't put a percentage on it, but you've got a pie, and capital is just one piece of it. How are you supporting this business? Doesn't matter, big or small, in terms of access to customers, access to partners, access to thought leaders and advisors that will come in and help you get really clear on the things that you're trying to do. So maybe I won't harp on this too much, but strategic partnerships has been a really core part of, I think, all of the work that I've done. And, Jennifer, you've known me for a bit now. I think I just like being around people. I like meeting new people. I'm genuinely curious to kind of learn. I maintain a growth mindset. And so I think to the extent that organizations can mimic and can do some of that as well, you're going to be more successful.
Well, and I think to that point, if you have that mindset, that positive mindset, and the ongoing, somehow we're going to raise all ships if we're around the right people with again a lot of synergies and the same drive and determination to get things done. That just making sure you're in those rooms, those partnerships kind of rise out of those interactions. And I think that's the more intentional you are about it, I think the more difficult it actually can become if you're like striking out to find those partnerships. So now switch gears a little bit. And I know there's a lot of fun you get involved in as well. And so I'm going to jump to asking about your involvement in some virtual reality projects, and things really aimed at improving human performance. And so I think people can tell as we talk to you today, a lot of energy, and you've found ways to channel that. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So the fun thing here is, let's tie this all the way back to my intro here and my deep fascination for the human mind and body. So I deeply believe that when each of us individually and collectively are at our best, look out, because we can do anything we want to do. And it's the old adage of, we've all flown in airplanes. You put your oxygen mask on before, you help the person next to you. And I think this is just an area where I take this personally, even for myself. I mean, we won't nerd out here, but like I could talk for
Yeah.
hours about my sleep, my sleep regimen, right? And I take my sleep very seriously, and all the things I do, life hacks around there to make sure that my sleep is so optimized that each and every day I am ready to go after the things that I need to work on. And we talked before this on one of the companies that I'm involved in. It's a London-based company that is leveraging virtual reality to simulate experiences for humans here on Earth that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have unless you went into outer space. And so from a scalability problem, VR here is, again, the technology, the tool that's unlocking new experiences. We all can't go and hop on, Jeff Bezos' rocket and go take a trip with him. Be lovely at some point. Maybe we'll do a FOA field trip and
Perfect. Sounds great.
we'll do that. But I think here, when you can really understand the levers that you need to optimize, again, whether it's sleep or nutrition or hydration. We have a saying in our house, hydrate or dihydrate, right? And so hydration is super important. But I think this is an area that excites me, because whether it's virtual reality or any other technology, when you can crack the code to kind of living your highest quality life every single day, you are so much better prepared to go and conquer the world, whatever that looks like to you, whether it's building a business, whether it's going to solve world hunger, whether it doesn't matter. You are now primed to go and have a bigger impact there. You owe it to yourself. I look at it as a very personal responsibility. I owe it to myself to be the best version of myself each and every day.
All right. Well, at least where I'm sitting, it's 2 o'clock Eastern, so it's kind of slump time in the afternoon. So you're setting a high bar for everybody right now. But I appreciate that. And as I come out of this and be like, all right, we're focused in the hour before you on checklists and accountability. So you're setting a whole different bar for us. We got it. Um, and so with all of this, and it kind of flows into, you have a really strong commitment to mentoring, to giving back. What key advice as we take this into the startup realm, which balance like you're talking about right now, and self-care can be a very difficult part of this, but what key advice would you give startups and growth stage companies who are trying to achieve the success you've been having?
I would I would say get really good at the basics. And again, it's super easy to focus on kind of the sexy technology and AI and generative and otherwise that is fun to talk about. And everybody wants to talk about it right now. But I'll first maybe say that, time back to something I said earlier. I stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Like I'm here because of all of the help and guidance and support that others have given me along the way. And I'm very, you know, I take that very serious as well. And so any chance that I get to support others and give back where I can, I take it seriously, right? Like it's a job for me. But I would say, for folks that are getting really trying to grow their business, it doesn't matter what stage. Let's go back to the strategy, technology, and innovation piece and say, let's start there. Like do that. That's a foundational thing.
Right.
There's a lot of companies, another analogy for you, that are off to the races and they're saying, we're running a marathon and we want to run faster next year. And I look down and guess what? Your shoelaces are untied.
Right. It matters.
And so it's just little analogies like that that I used to say, time out, let's get really good at the basics. As an organization, how's your sleep schedule? Are you hydrating? Are you watering the flowers? We've got all sorts of analogies here. But I would say get really good at the basics, and within there, you'll have impact. You'll make money. You'll drive greater returns for whatever it is the business that you're doing. And if you're not sure what those are, give me a call, and I would be happy to talk more about the fundamentals of growth, because it's a special thing.
Well, and I think that, when you take that into you're always so high energy. And so when we talk about taking that into emerging technologies, trends you believe will significantly impact the industry in the coming years. And so the things that these companies we're talking about, these startups are focused on, what's on your radar? What do you see coming?
I'm gonna take a slightly different approach to this. I'm not going to talk about a cool technology. I'm going to talk about individuals and organizations I see doing things well, and that's focusing on the human. And so I'll give an example. Microsoft is a really good example at this. Everybody was worried, oh, AI and technology, it's going to displace, nobody's going to have jobs, robots are going to be doing everything. As far as I know, we're still in control, right? Like we can still make decisions as human beings. And so what does that mean for organizations? You have to upskill and reskill folks that are doing learning and development to be able to modify the collective knowledge of your human resources, your people, which is, everybody says it's our greatest asset. Okay, well, what are you doing to nurture and support that asset to make sure that it's primed to support the growth of your business forevermore? And so the other thing that I'll say is, talking about technology as a tool. Guess what? People are still using these tools. So if the people don't have the understanding and the awareness and are not ready to adopt and leverage these technologies to make better, faster, smarter business decisions, the weak link there is people. And so how do you up level that ability for humans to be able to leverage the phenomenal power of technology that's here today? So I think, technology is in some ways ahead of our collective ability as humans to leverage it to build better businesses. So the folks that are really focused on the human capital aspect, I think are going to be ahead of the masses.
You've got the challenge out there for us. So Greg, just a couple more questions as we wrap up or approach wrapping up today. How do you measure the success of digital transformation initiatives? What are the benchmarks you use?
Mm. I typically pierce or pull apart the quantitative and qualitative. And so on the quantitative, look, we're running a business. We need to show growth, and that includes revenue and profitability and all of the financial metrics that go into growth today. It's required. It's part of the foundational portion of running a business. So you have to look at those. You have to be able to tie specific financial value from any project or program or capability that you're developing. Can you tie that through all the way through to the P&L statement and say, this is where the impact of that investment and that project will have on our overall company's business? Now, the quantitative side is a little bit more subjective. It touches on the human side. So I think surveys are great tools because guess what? We're humans and we're different and we're messy. And so you've got to be able to tap into kind of the collective point of view from your humans about does their work feel easier, right? So maybe we'll take somebody who's a financial analyst working for a big company, and now there's a new technology or tool that they're using. Well, let me survey this person to find out from a qualitative standpoint, has your life gotten easier? Are you able to do more work? So I think it's really important to look at both sides of those. While a lot of finance-driven organizations want to quantify the financial behind everything, there are some things that are really hard to, and you might not be able to. And I don't think that should be an impediment. Great, that's okay. Let's focus on the qualitative aspects or the benefits of the work that we're doing.
Awesome. And thank you. And so as we transition in a moment, I see John has arrived too, and you've met John, so you know I've got a couple high energy people here with me today, which is fun. But so Greg, so thank you so much. And just a final question for you, as basically on all the wide range of things you're working on, is there anything that you're particularly excited about that when after you've locked down your sleep regime for the night and you're up and energized, what gets you up and running in the morning?
It used to be working on big, hairy, complex challenges. That's still there. It's just not number one. What I'm most excited about is now working and partnering with good people. I'm a values-driven guy, and partnering up with other people that have similar values and principles that they want to show up in the world and do good and make money while you do it. You can have both. That's what I'm most excited about, is doing more of that type of work with good people that want to drive impact.
Well, love that, and I love that as part of it. I know we have on the calendar. I'm going to get to see you a couple times over the next few weeks. So super excited about that, Greg. Really a privilege. I know we get to clown around a lot, so if I don't get to say that enough, thank you. You've been incredibly generous. Thank you for taking the time today. Again, if you're on live hanging out with us and you have questions for Greg, please let me know. And we'll make sure we get those answered. We will post this out, and then hopefully Greg will have the chance to follow up with you, and look forward to it.
Sounds great. Thanks again, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.